All right, I think we're going to get started. There's some people on Zoom, so welcome to those people and everyone in the audience. Just wanted to start out by saying thank you for joining us tonight for the Perspectives panel on balancing life and technology, a topic that we all know is very important in our daily lives and affects us from an educational standpoint, our relationships with mental health and mental awareness, productivity, and even personal growth. We are especially grateful for all of our panelists this evening and the diverse and knowledge that they bring to tonight's discussion. So our discussion will feature some insight from occupational therapists, a middle school principal, a mental health specialist, and then 3 students who bring their own personal perspective as well as the importance of real life experience that they are currently going through. Technology has created incredible opportunities for learning, communication, creativity, and connection. But as we all know, at the same time, there is challenges that are constantly coming up in regards to screen time, social media, and again, mental health focus and even disrupting sleep and things like that. So tonight's panel is designed to explore the realities of these different experiences and viewpoints and encourage a deeper discussion so that we can help create a healthier, more balanced habit for ourselves and our children. So as we begin, here's how the evening's going to go. Our moderators will pose a series of questions to the panelists. Each of the experts will have the opportunity to respond and share their perspective in a timely manner so we can hear from everybody. Throughout the discussion, we're going to encourage all of the attendees, whether you're in person or on Zoom, to reflect on different ideas that are being shared so that you can at the end, we'll open it up for some questions and you guys can, reflect on what was being discussed personally and how it affects you at home, out in the community, in school, things like that. So the event is being held, as I said, in person, but also on Zoom. At the conclusion, we will allow any questions for the panelists or any just open discussion that anyone wants to have. We would like to thank Dr. Cascone for his constant support throughout, getting the Balance Project in Holmdel up and running and, the community outreach and all of that. So we really appreciate your presence at all of the events that we've had and just, the constant support. So thank you so much for that. So before we begin, we'd like to recognize and also just introduce the Balance Project for those that may not know. The Balance Project is a 501c. It's a parent-led organization dedicated to bringing life and tech into harmony together for families and communities. It just began as, parents coming together and wanting to really navigate how to make this work, and it's kind of exploded, the Balance Project, into over 250 communities nationwide. Obviously, Holmdel being one of the communities. So at its core, the Balance Project is really about not necessarily eliminating technology, but trying to find a true balance of tech and real life for ourselves and obviously for our children. So before we get started with the questions, just going to do a quick introduction of myself and the other community leads. My name is Michelle Principato, and I'm a Holmdel mom. I have 2 boys, and I am due in a few weeks with a girl. And my children are in kindergarten, and they're and a toddler. They currently go to Tranquil Learning Center, which is in Holmdel. I learned about the Balance Project in 2024, in December. They really had just launched in November. And as soon as I found out that Holly Muscatello from Little Silver had started this with the parent group in Little Silver, I was like, I need to get involved. So as I started to really learn about it, I then was like, let's bring a chapter to Holmdel. And very shortly after, you know, we formed the Holmdel chapter and got things kicked off here. So very happy to be a part of the community, meeting lots of different people and having really important conversations. So thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Natalie Frere, and I am the events lead with the TBP. And I'm a full-time working mom. I have 2 daughters. One is in Indian Hill, the other one's in Village. And as a parent, you just become super aware of trying to find what is the healthy balance between technology and real life. So when I found out about the Balance Project through Michelle, I was totally on board, and I wanted to help and bring a conversation to the community and see how we can do that together as a team. So thank you.
My name is Maria Fabiano. I'm a mom of a Holmdel Montessori preschooler, and I have a 1.5-year-old, almost 2-year-old at home. I actually work in the district at Village School. I'm a 3rd grade special education teacher, and I've been working in the district for 17 years, so I dye my hair, but I've been here a while. My husband actually grew up, he was born and raised in Holmdel, and after we got married, you know, we loved what Holmdel was about. We loved the community. We wanted our kids to grow up here and be a part of it, so that's why we moved here. I actually went to college with Holly, who started the Balance Project, and when I heard Michelle was getting involved, I immediately wanted to be a part of it and learn how to balance tech for my own kids in this ever-changing world. So that's a bit about me.
Hi, I'm Michelle Mara. I am a mother of a Village kindergartner and preschooler, and I also have a almost 2-year-old at home. I'm also an educator. I've been an educator for over 15 years, special education teacher, 9 of which were in an urban setting. And now I have been a middle school assistant principal for the past 4 years. So I've seen firsthand, both at home and in the classroom, just how difficult it is to balance technology. Once I heard about all of this, again, I just became excited to be a part of the movement and help us all navigate how to ride this wave. So now I'd like to introduce tonight's panelists. Emily McHugh. Emily is a licensed pediatric occupational therapist and founder of Sticks and Stones, an organization dedicated to promoting the importance of play-based learning, encouraging children, families, schools, and communities to connect with the outdoors while fostering social emotional wellness, educational growth, and environmental awareness. She is dedicated to reconnecting children with the natural world through play. With a deep passion for outdoor education and a background in child development, Emily is an advocate for the importance of unstructured, nature-based play in fostering creativity, resilience, and holistic growth in children. Thank you, Emily. Chantal Simonelli. Mrs. Simonelli is the principal of William R. Satz Middle School and the 2006 recipient of the New Jamley Principal of the Year Award. With more than 20 years in education as a teacher, supervisor, assistant principal, and principal, she is passionate about creating school communities where students feel connected, supported, and empowered to grow. Throughout her career, she has focused on strengthening school culture and climate through social emotional learning, restorative practices, and inclusive student-centered initiatives. She believes meaningful relationships, belonging, and student voice are essential to both academic success and emotional well-being. As a leader, Mrs. Simonelli is committed to supporting the whole child while fostering collaborative professional learning environments that help both students and educators thrive. Thank you, Mrs. Simonelli. Katie McAvoy. Katie is an occupational therapist with 10 years of experience in pediatrics. including outpatient therapy, community-based practice, and school-based practice. She has worked for Holmdel Public Schools for the past 6 years, including working at SATS, Holmdel High School, and Indian Hill for the past 4 years, and has spent the last 2 years working at Village. Katie has special interest in areas of expertise in executive functioning and sensory processing, and has provided professional development to Holmdel school staff on these areas for the past few years. Katie also has experience working and collaborating with fellow panelist Emily McHugh through Sticks and Sprouts. Thank you, Katie. Samantha Safiati. Samantha is a licensed clinical social worker who has dedicated the last 5 years to frontline mental health care in the crisis unit at Bayshore Medical Center. In her leadership capacity, she leads a team of crisis clinicians in guiding the department's efforts in providing immediate and effective interventions for individuals in psychiatric distress. Her experience in this demanding setting has equipped her with a comprehensive skill set in crisis management, patient stabilization, and clinical leadership. In her private practice, Samantha offers a more long-term therapeutic relationship with clients, specializing in the treatment of anxiety, depression, and mood disorders. She is dedicated to providing personalized, evidence-based care to help her clients understand their mental health, develop effective coping strategies, and improve their overall quality of life. Thank you, Samantha. Sebastian. Sebastian is a senior at Holmdel High School who values a deep commitment to community. He's been a varsity cheerleader at Holmdel High School for 4 years and president of the Holmdel High School TV and Film Society, and an active participant in several other Holmdel High School clubs. Beyond that, he also enjoys hanging out with friends and reading. Sebastian admittedly uses social media quite actively, but still holds a high regard for time spent away from screens. Thanks for that honesty, Sebastian. Sienna. Sienna is a freshman who loves being active and spending time outdoors. She's on dance team, and dancing is one of her favorite ways to express herself and stay motivated. She enjoys being outside, whether it's going for walks, hanging out with friends, or just enjoying nature. One of her goals is to reduce screen time so she can focus more on school, stay productive, and balance her time better. She wants to spend more time doing things that help her grow, stay healthy, and enjoy real-life experiences with the people around her. Thank you, Sienna. And lastly, Ariella. Ariella enjoys staying active and spending time with her friends. She's on the softball team, and playing softball helps her stay motivated, work hard, and be a good teammate. She also likes staying away from screens and spending more time hanging out with friends and doing things outside. Reducing screen time helps her focus better in school, get her work done, and stay more balanced in her everyday life. Thank you, Ariella. All right, pass it to Natalie.
So welcome, panelists. Thank you so much for being here tonight. So as we begin tonight's conversation, we have some pretty big questions for you guys. Feel free, any of you guys, you can answer, okay? So starting off with our first question, what do you define as screen time?
I guess I'll start.
Thank you.
So I think that screen time is broader than just the social media or gaming. It includes educational use also, communication, entertainment, streaming, texting, social media. And as a middle school principal, I also believe that not all screen time is equal. So using technology to collaborate, create, learn is very different from passive scrolling or doom scrolling, excessive scrolling on social media use. For me, the bigger question is whether or not technology is enhancing a student's growth or a child's growth and well-being, or is it interfering with their sleep, their focus, their relationships, their ability to be present in the real world. So I think all of those are, it's not a clear-cut answer to a question. It usually is a little more complex. And at the middle school level, I think students are still developing self-regulation. So they really need guidance and they need healthy boundaries as we prepare them for high school and life beyond high school, college.
That's perfect.
So-
So thank you. Well, that actually leads into my next question. So at what point does screen usage shift from beneficial to harmful, in your opinion? Any of the panelists?
I think when we start to see a lot of dysregulation when a TV show is over and a child has a meltdown, or you go to check to make sure they're sleeping at night and they're sneaking the tablet in bed, things like that. And we'll get into this later, but when a child has difficulty finding things to do without a screen, right, when toys are no longer interesting or a conversation is hard to have, face-to-face is difficult, I think that's when we can start to say it's becoming harmful.
Thank you. And then are we focusing too much on screen time with kids and not enough on what they're actually doing on screens?
Oh, there we go. So used to this nice new microphone. I'm thinking about what Mrs. Simonelli said earlier about how there's a difference between that doom scrolling, TV watching, YouTube watching video games versus that screen time that's spent in meaningful ways like in education. So it's important to understand that there's value in screen time. It's just a matter of how much time is spent in which type of screen time and the boundaries around being able to use screen time knowing that there's advantages, but also disadvantages to different types too.
Thank you so much.
I just wanted to add to that, also teaching students or children to be digital citizens and really looking at quality versus quantity is important too.
So I'm going to gear the first set of specific questions towards Emily. Emily, and you just mentioned this, why is boredom important and how do screens interfere with it?
Sure. So boredom is, you can think of it as like a gateway to creativity. We run these outdoor classes and we'll have kids who are really new to this type of play. It's unstructured play. When you first come to a drop-off class, you get run of the play space, but we have a lot of non-traditional toys there. So there's some toys like trucks and things like that, but we have a mud kitchen, so there's spoons and bowls, there's rain gutters and PVC pipes to build with. And I find that kids have to practice being bored. So our regulars come in and they know they can jump right to it and they know what to do and they can put things together and get really creative and problem solve. But some of our newcomers who aren't used to being bored and playing in that type of way sometimes wander or complain, and instead of just giving them the answer, well, you can do this, this, and this, I'm like, why don't you watch the other kids? Or maybe that log isn't just a log. Maybe it's a window to all the bugs underneath, right? So boredom takes practice, and it's really important to practice boredom because it's how we reflect on the day. It's how we let our mind kind of reset. It's how we build tolerance for discomfort, which is another really big thing with kids nowadays. There's a lot of pressure to make kids happy all the time. People pay to come to class, so I'm especially like, I need to send these kids home happy, but I'm a newer parent, but I've talked to a lot of parents, and everyone wants their child to be happy, but if we constantly just hand them happiness, then they can never create it for themselves. So when there's discomfort in being bored, they're also safe. It's like a great way to practice discomfort because nothing bad is going to happen, right? Just maybe more complaining. But if we allow them to sit in it and then create their own happiness or solve problems and get creative or collaborate with friends, they're learning so much from being bored. And then another big piece of being bored is it creates cognitive flexibility, which I would argue is one of the most needed traits for a successful person, whether you're a child or an adult, right? If you are flexible in thinking, then you can make friends easily. You can be a team player. You can lead, but also you know when it's not your turn to lead. If you have a play plan and your friend doesn't agree with it, you can then think of a solution to work together. And as an adult, think about your friends or the coworkers who you like to spend time with. They're probably pretty flexible and flexible thinkers, and they can work together, they can share ideas, but also hear your ideas. So we learn so much from being bored. So if your child comes to you and says, I'm bored, I think you should say, that's great. What are we going to do about it?
Great, thank you. Also, how can families realistically incorporate more unplugged nature-based time into their busy schedules?
So I think some people hear the word nature and they think of a mountain or a forest trail or cross-country skiing, and that's not realistic in our daily lives. So I tell families to really lower the bar when they think of nature. Like, it can be eating a snack on your back deck, or maybe the kids get in their PJs and you do a quick after-dinner walk, or you watch the sunset. It's as simple as heading out the back door. Maybe you have 10 minutes before you have to leave for school. Who can go collect 10 leaves first, right? And they race out the back door. Any time spent in a green space is really beneficial. Research tells us that you don't need to be immersed in a forest, although research does tell us that's some of the best place to be, but you don't have to be in it. It tells us that just green spaces in general, so grassy fields, a walk around a block with trees, a garden in the backyard, really helps to reset us emotionally and with our attentions. Then when we do head off to school or come back inside for homework, we're kind of reset in that positive way. So I also tell families to tag nature time with what they're already doing, right? Everyone's really busy. So we all eat dinner, so maybe then you can tag it with a before dinner, after dinner walk. We all eat breakfast, can you do that outside? Instead of maybe everyone watching a show at night, maybe you just pick one day a week. Maybe it's Wednesday night where you're all going to go hang out in the backyard instead. So kind of tagging it or replacing it with current time, because who has more time to add in more things to do? So take a routine, and can you bring that routine outside? That's the easiest way to get in some more green space time.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, so the next round of questions is going to be directed to you, Samantha. So, so the first question is, what are some signs that screened and or social media use is becoming addictive and in turn compulsive?
Yeah, so can everyone hear me? Okay, so I think that the main sign is when it starts to interfere with daily functioning. Emotional well-being, personal relationships. If it becomes like compulsive and difficult to control, this could lead to negative consequences. Also, neglecting responsibilities when individuals are, having screen time, when it takes precedence over tasks like schoolwork or chores or even personal hygiene, it's definitely a sign that it could turn into a problem. Some emotional signs is mood swings. When mood swings are related to screen use, such as being overly excited while on a device or moody when asked to stop, can indicate that this could lead to a problem of addicted behavior. And also using screens to cope. If a child or a person in general is consistently turning to screens to escape difficult emotions or stress or boredom, it may be a sign that they're using the device as a primary coping mechanism instead of healthy ones.
Okay, I think we're back. Sorry. So, leading into the next question, so are you seeing do you see a strong correlation between depression, anxiety because of an overuse of screens?
Yeah, so unfortunately we do see a lot of kids that come into the crisis unit that not necessarily the amount of screen time, but I think what they are looking at, bullying,
The quality of it.
all of it.
Yeah.
That's leading kids to have feelings of suicidal thoughts, wanting to hurt themselves, whether that be cutting or burning on purpose. We do see that a lot in the hospital, unfortunately. So yeah, I do think that again, I don't necessarily think it's the amount of time. I think it's what an individual is absorbing from social media.
Right. It makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Chantal, what changes have you seen in students' attention, behavior, or social skills over the past 5 to 10 years?
So we've seen noticeable shifts in students' attention spans, their communication skills, and emotional regulation, for sure. Many middle school students in particular are growing up in a world with just constant stimulation and constant connection online, which really can make it harder for them to sustain focus, navigate conflict. We have, peer conflict groups where we talk about peer conflict resolution, and we're teaching all of these skills to these students. And so we really see that it is really becoming much more difficult for them to be able to sustain focus, engage comfortably in face-to-face interactions. I can tell you that in the morning when I'm greeting my students and saying good morning, they are few and far between that are greeting me and looking at me in my face, or even when I'm talking to them, being able to have that contact and speak without being nervous. At the same time, though, students today are incredibly aware and compassionate and open to conversations around mental health and well-being. So I think as educators, our role is to help them build balance, resilience, communication skills, and healthy relationships. And that's something that we focus on in school with our middle schoolers, so we can prepare them for high school and beyond.
Thank you. And I guess it kind of just also ties into the next question, which is how do screens and social media impact learning readiness and classroom engagement, which kind of mentioned before. But.
So technology can absolutely support learning when used intentionally, but we also see how the excessive screen time, just like many of us up on this panel said, excessive screen time and social media can impact their readiness to learn. So many students are coming to school tired, they're distracted, they're overstimulated, or they're emotionally affected by screen use outside of school. So the social media interactions, the online interactions, the bullying, the harassment, the different posts that they are experiencing outside of school hours. That can definitely impact focus, perseverance, peer interactions, and an emotional regulation throughout the day. Specifically emotional regulation, we've seen that really does affect that throughout the day. At the middle school level, though, we're focused on helping students develop healthy habits, self-regulation, and balance, while also teaching them how to use technology responsibly and productively. So I'll just throw a plug in here. This year, we just introduced a new elective for our incoming 7th graders as a result of the amount of technology and how we see it's impacting our students. We created an elective that's called Digital Citizenship and Technology in Society, and it's an interactive elective for students to learn how to navigate today's digitally connected world with responsibility, awareness, and critical thinking. And I won't read the whole thing, but essentially we found that it's so important that we really need to start addressing it with our 7th graders so that hopefully by the time they are ready to transition to high school, they can find some of that balance.
That's amazing.
I just want to add, one thing that I've noticed, especially in classrooms, whenever there's a fire drill, everyone's first instinct is to go grab their phone from the holder, even for 4 minutes of being outside. And I do that too, but it really made me think after I realized it, why do we do that? And I think a big part of it is having unchecked access to screens, especially at this age, kind of creates a facade that looking at your phone, even in the classroom while you're doing homework, is a quick thing and won't take that long. And it's kind of just a very easy way to let yourself be distracted, especially if you it kind of takes a level of awareness to understand that many people can't develop on their own.
Thank you, Sebastian.
Hi, Katie. How are you? So my question for you is, have you seen delays in fine motor skills or self-regulating that could be linked to screen time?
So there is a growing body of research that does show an association between higher screen use and delays in fine motor skills. In terms of the actual studies that have been done, it's mostly on younger children, so especially preschool age or kids younger than 2 to 3. And basically what they came down to, what the studies found, is the more time that especially younger kids spend on screens, they're spending more time on screens, and therefore they're spending less time on opportunities to develop fine motor skills through play, through through engaging with others, through moving their bodies, through playing with tools and playing with toys. The highest risk factors they found was that very early exposure. So again, kids under ages between 2 and 3. When kids are on screens for multiple hours per day, that puts them at a higher risk of having fine motor delays. When we're talking about passive viewing, so as opposed to like watching a show as a family, meaning a kid is just put in front of a screen in terms of entertainment, they also had higher risk for fine motor delays when kids are using handheld devices as opposed to television use. So there is a limited amount of research, but in terms of what's out there, there's definitely showing a correlation, but I think a lot of it comes down to, again, how kids are spending their time, especially when they're at that very vulnerable developmental age.
All right, and then how do screens affect sleep cycles and daily routines for the development and perspectives?
So screen time has a big effect on sleep. Especially exposure to the light from screens, especially in the evening, affects the body's circadian rhythm, which is that internal clock. So blue light enriched from phones, tablets, TVs, and gaming devices can suppress melatonin release, which supports sleep. It can delay the onset of sleep. It can shift the body clock to naturally just later in the evening, and it would also reduce sleepiness at bedtime. Younger children are more sensitive, especially with screens around nighttime, because just the way that their eyes are developing, their eyes transmit more light to the brain than older kids or even adults. Also, too, younger kids, their sleep systems are still developing, whereas adults and older kids have had years to develop their sleep habits. And also, younger children require more hours of sleep. So then, therefore, if hours are being affected, it affects them greater. It's also important to be mindful of, when I was reading about this too, that was interesting about like the content itself that kids and people are, and even adults are watching before bed. You know, if things are really fast-paced or exciting or stressful, and that's the type of content that's being viewed before sleep, it's also just going to naturally, you know, arouse that central nervous system and require you to be more in a fight or flight mode when you're supposed to be winding down. I know for me personally, there's only certain shows I can watch at night before bed, but it definitely interferes with sleep for sure.
I'm going to interject here. I have a grandson, and he's 2 and 4 months, and my daughter intentionally has been looking at the shows that she lets him view on TV and has really looked at some of the more lower, I don't even know the word, but it's low stimulation, and yeah, because she noticed a big difference in his sleep pattern when he was watching some of the regular everyday shows that are on now for toddlers versus some of the older shows that are a little more low stimulation. So it was amazing to actually see the difference.
Thank you.
I'd like to,
Yes,
say
please.
something. Yeah. I think sleep is super important for all of us. And consequences of poor sleep is, sleep deprivation is linked to a host of mental health problems, like mood swings, irritability, difficulty concentrating, which then can exacerbate symptoms of the anxiety and depression. And we do see that a lot in the hospital with kids and with adults. Not sleeping can lead to, in older adults, we see, mania and bipolar and things like that. So sleep is just super important for all of us. When sleep is stable, you're stable. So, yeah, I think that screen time can definitely affect that.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to turn it over to our high school students now. You can all answer or pick and choose. What pressures do teens feel around being constantly online or available?
Teens today can feel like they have to be available 24/7 because everyone is connected through phones, social media, all the time. If someone texts you and you don't answer for a while, people might think you're ignoring them. If your friends are posting together and you weren't there, it can make you feel left out. Apps like Snapchat make people feel pressure to keep streaks going every day. Social media can make it seem like everyone has a perfect life, even though people usually only post the best parts. Behind the screens, you never really know what they're going through.
Thank you. Did you want to add or no? Okay. That was great. Thank you. What about students wanting more boundaries? Do you find that your friends want more boundaries around screens or less boundaries?
Students want less boundaries around screen use because technology is a huge part of our everyday lives. We use screens for sports and school. Teens think too many websites are blocked, even some study sites are blocked at school. Students argue that they don't have enough freedom. Students also feel less trusted when everything online is heavily restricted, even when they're trying to use technology responsibly for schoolwork or creatively.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add on to that. I feel like a big part of it is a lot of students, especially in the high school age and even middle school, want to feel like they're like very like in control, and that also kind of leads into like a lot of people at our ages feel like they know a lot more than they should know, and that also kind of goes into the boundaries.
Right. Thank you. Any advice that you would give a younger student about managing screen time?
Yeah, so throughout high school, I've always felt like I've had a good handle on my screen time usage as far as getting things done academically. And I believe that one important aspect of that is like how I was able to set goals for myself, which I think is important for younger people to prioritize, especially because I think it made it easier to resist like external distractions that could have prevented me from furthering my academic success and or like developing skills that I value in my everyday life. I do think it's very important for students to like learn how to develop the autonomy to regulate their screen time usage on their own. I think when it comes in the way, because you only do high school once, so you don't want to risk like damaging your high school career experience by biting off more than you can chew in a way and trying to develop your own autonomy when you're not ready.
Great point. Thank you. So these are some closing questions for all the panelists if they wish to answer them. If we fast forward 10 years, what are some potential consequences, positive or negative, if current screen and social media habits continue to be unchanged?
I think we're going to see a generation of older children and adults that really have a hard time handling conflict. Kind of going back to that whole boredom piece, and the screen time gives you direct, right, like happiness and stimulation. And when we're put in front of screens, we can avoid all the tough things going on in our lives, and we don't have to deal with them. So I do think that with this excessive screen use, we're going to see adults who aren't okay with being uncomfortable, hearing the word no, having to like sit and wait, and the patience piece. I think we'll see a lot of struggling with that.
Yeah, and a generation of disconnect. You know, just piggybacking off of that, a lot more increased anxiety than we already see now, more difficulty with conflict resolution, flexibility, all things that we've all said already. I think we risk seeing a larger disconnect.
Just one more thing. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and the psychiatrist was saying that she's working with a lot of children with depression, anxiety, and OCD. And what she started doing was playing Uno on the bathroom floor with them, which sounds so silly, but she was like, these kids cannot handle any form of discomfort. And playing Uno on the bathroom floor is safe, but it's uncomfortable. So they're having to find fun in the discomfort. And she's like, and that's where we start. So it was just really eye-opening and such an interesting approach. But to hear her say that she saw so many kids who like couldn't even handle that, like just sitting on a tile floor, because we try and fix everything, I think, to a detrimental level.
Sorry, I just want to add, I think another big aspect of that is kind of like the convenience that gets provided from people having screens, especially when it comes to like education. A lot of people see things online once and they like completely roll with it and even sometimes develop like a belief system around it. And I think it's harmful for people to go forward looking at things online and not have the willingness to like further research on their own. Mm-hmm. I feel like the convenience aspect contributes to that.
WebMD.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add too, thinking about like I was talking about earlier with kids with fine motor delays. I mean, think about delays in like all aspects of childhood. If kids are spending more time on screens and less time having those real world lived experiences. So from screens, you get high intensity auditory and visual input, but in terms of there's so many other areas of sensory processing and development, like movement senses and body awareness, and tactile experiences that are so beneficial to developing motor skills, but also to developing being able to move through space efficiently, but then also doing that in the context of being around other children as opposed to just, being around children or things like that through screens itself. So there's risk for more delays across the board. Thank you.
Katie and I used to run a bike camp together, and we stopped running bike camp, and one of the big decisions was the last year we ran it, the kids really struggle with even, the first thing we teach is how to get on and off your bike. It's the first basic step, and the kids struggled so much with that. We had a 2-to-1 ratio, so we'd have 4 OTs, and there would be 8 children at camp. And it just got to a point where I'll only do individual lessons now because the groups just couldn't remain safe with following directions, with the core strength of holding up their bikes. It was all so novel to them. And then also, it's hard to learn how to ride a bike. So the frustration tolerance, there were so many pieces that just got to be too much. So even in the 3 years we ran bike camp, by the last year I was like, I'll only do individual lessons now. I think that kind of speaks volumes of what we're seeing.
It does, and I have to piggyback off of that because my grandson has a motorized motorcycle and a motorized Jeep and a balance bike, and he'll opt for the motorized vehicles because it's so much easier. And now we have to make a concerted effort to put him on the balance bike and teach him to move his little feet.
And I think that's the hardest part for them, my little guys too, knowing when to put your foot forward and the other one back. We ran into one of Michelle's kids at T-ball and they had the balance bike and he's like, Mommy, why don't I have that? You do have that, but you're choosing the motorized one more often.
Yeah. And he didn't it was a couple of weeks that he wasn't on his balance bike. He was using the motorized motorcycle, which he loves so much. But he was getting frustrated just in 2 weeks because he wasn't going fast enough on the balance bike because he couldn't use his feet. So we see it. You have to make a concerted effort now.
I think a lot of that ties into also what we see where it's, you want that instant gratification, everything to happen instantly, and then the struggle, which is the hardest part, but that's where you learn everything. You learn about yourself, you learn how to manage it all, and it's just being, like you said, comfortable in the struggle.
Consistency too.
No.
Yep.
Okay.
No and consistency, right?
And I was also going to talk about self-confidence. I think that kids are, focused on how many likes they're getting on their photo and, how many, retweet, I don't know, do you still use Twitter or retweets, and in-person interactions, which could lead to social anxiety.
Yeah, I was going to say something about self-esteem when we were talking about the bike thing. I know for me personally, when I was trying to work on my cheer, whatever, I took tumbling lessons at an in-person gym, and you always see people on, as Sienna was saying, on social media, and everything they do is perfect. I felt kind of self-conscious, being around everyone when I was at a beginner level and everyone around me was more advanced. It kind of decreases people's willingness to try new things, which I feel can be harmful for future generations.
Definitely. I just want to piggyback off of that really quick. I was talking to Katie. My son is 3 and he hates trying new things. And I feel like such a bad parent because we did individual swim lessons and he cried hysterically the whole time, the whole 45 minutes. I felt awful. And then at the end he said, "Oh, Mommy, I like it. I want to come back next week." So it's, afraid to try new things and make that challenge. But once you push them as a parent, they like it, So giving them that safe space also to fail and be successful.
Yeah, and let them know that it's okay.
Yeah, and then cry in a corner where they don't see it. Just any advice to finish things off for future generations? Any advice that you'll give, students moving up or parents or children in the world today?
I'll start off with technology should enhance our lives and not consume it. So I think we need to set boundaries and make time for real world connection. It's just been the thread throughout. And I think our most important moments of growth are when we put our phones down. And we can simply do it by having dinner together and not having any phones at dinner. And that includes at restaurants. I can't tell you how many times we go out as a family and the little kid is watching YouTube on a phone, and, the kids are on their phone. So for us, for our family, it's a rule. There's no phones at very minimum at the dinner table. And then finding moments and finding time to be outside, to go for a walk, not necessarily changing our life completely, but finding ways to intertwine it within our daily lives, and how can we do that? So I think that's really important.
Thank you.
I think one of the best things that parents can do, and even people of all ages, would be like fostering hobbies or helping your children to foster hobbies that don't involve screens. Just thinking at Village, I screen students for OT on a regular basis. I evaluate students. I'm always meeting new students. And my favorite thing to ask them is, what do you like to do in your free time? And I get a wide variety of responses, but a lot of which, unfortunately, are video games or TV. And again, I work at Village, right? So these are first grade, second grade, kindergarten. But I love more than anything when they tell me something like, I like to have a bug collection. And I'm like, that's amazing. I don't like bugs, but good for you. That means you're outside and you're looking for bugs. Or they tell me, like, I go to a dance class that I love. Or someone told me the other day they go to boxing. And, fostering hobbies that are away from screens. So that way when screen time is over, they have other options, or they are passionate about things that, don't involve technology to a certain extent.
Thank you.
I think that we should be able to be outside more during school, because me and my friends like to go outside during lunch, and sometimes we get in trouble for being outside, so I feel like we should be able to be outside a little bit more maybe during like science or something, do like a science project outside.
We'll talk.
I agree with you. I think that's wonderful. And one of the things that we did at SATS a couple of years ago was introduce recess back to middle school. And it has been one of the most positive, impactful things that we have done at SATS. It's amazing the difference it makes for our students just to have 25 minutes outside. Rough in the winter, but we still have students that go out in the wintertime if it's, not raining and not snowing.
So
it's
they'll go
amazing.
out when it's below freezing. They'll put their coats on and go outside?
Some will.
Wow, that's great. That's
Some
great.
will. I mean, they do it in Alaska. They should be able to do it here.
I call Katie sometimes. I'm like, why aren't we outside?
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that I've learned from Emily, and I'm sure she can add more about this, about how you can be outside, everyone can be outside in all weather, in all seasons.
Yeah.
When I would work with Emily, and it would be like, I check the weather, I'm like, Emily, it's raining today. And she's like, Katie, class is on. Dress for the weather. And she's taught me really that, it's okay. And really, it's really all about dressing for the weather. If you're wearing the appropriate clothing, if you're wearing the appropriate shoes, it's totally okay to be outside if it's raining, or if it's freezing, or if it's cold, if you know how to wear hats and layers and gloves, and how, just because the spring and summer are the best times of year, fall even, those beautiful days, everybody let's get outside, but really, it's possible almost every single day, as long as you're dressed appropriately.
And how fun is that? When was the last time anybody ran and threw a puddle of rain and stood outside in the rain? I know you did.
I was just going to
I don't think we did, but I think you did.
I think it's more uncomfortable for the parents, right? Or the adult that's with the child, because my 1-year-old always says, Mommy, I want to go outside. I want to, and I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I'm like, ugh, but just, it's more uncomfortable for us. They don't care. As long as they're warm and they're comfortable, they want to play. So it's just as the parent being okay with it. I just want to piggyback to Sienna really quick. You mentioned more outside time in schools. Is that the consensus with your peers? Do you feel like a lot of your friends want to be outside more in school?
Yes, a lot of my friends want to be outside during school, but even just over there's picnic tables out there. And when we went out, we just got in trouble from being out there.
Okay.
And yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that wraps it up. If anyone has any other questions, yep, go ahead.
Just in our discussion and talking about everything, with the cell phone ban in schools, I know that it's been already in place at all of the schools in Holmdel and a little bit more limited at the high school. I kind of just wanted to tie that in with The Anxious Generation, which is the book that kind of drove the Balance Project to get started, which 2 of the 4 norms is no cell phones until you get to high school and no social media until you're 16. So I kind of just wanted, because I know at the middle school, it's always surprising to see that it's so much less of students that do not have social media than it is students that do. So I kind of just wanted to get whoever wanted to share their take on any of that.
So when I was in middle school, all of my friends had social media, and my parents didn't let me get it until like I was in high school too. But I secretly got it when I was in 8th grade because I had a lot of FOMO, and I think it really helped me to have it. I think I shouldn't have, but it allowed me to kind of like discover myself on social media before I came into high school. But I think at the same time, there's a lot of risk involved with that because you never know what's going to happen. Especially when you do it like behind your parents' back like I did. There's so much that could have gone wrong, especially with the lack of like social media education and like not talking to like random people, because there's so many different ways that it could go wrong. But I do believe it's good to have some maybe like monitored access early on, that way you can learn how to be more independent with it in the right ways when you're older.
Hence the new elective for digital citizenship and navigating social media. I think the cell phone ban, I was sharing with Sienna and them that the Monmouth County Vocational has the 8th grade dialogue every year, and they're 8th grade students from a variety of different schools from Monmouth County that go, and they ask a series of questions, and one of the questions this year was the cell phone ban. And it was shocking actually, because majority of the students did acknowledge that their cell phones are a huge distraction to them, and that they actually are sort of secretly looking forward to the ban because they just want somebody to be able to structure and regulate their use, because they can't. And they struggle with it. Adults struggle with it. So I think that was really interesting, and I think it'll be interesting next year when we have the bell-to-bell cell phone ban. It's going to be a difficult journey for our students. But I think hopefully we'll see some gains in all of the things that we discussed tonight. Self-regulation, being able to navigate and be flexible, more attention, more focus. So I'm really hoping to see some of that come out of this bell-to-bell cell phone ban. Nope, not even between bells. Nope. The minute they walk in, when the bell rings, cell phone's away. When the bell rings at the end of the day, they can have them back. Now, a variety of different schools have addressed it in different ways. Some of them have cell phone pouches where the students actually put their cell phone in a pouch, and then it's magnetized and they can't see it or hear it until the end of the day, and then it magnetizes and it opens up. If you've ever been to some of the concerts, they actually make you put your cell phones in one of those. Other schools require students to put them in their lockers and lock them in their lockers, but they really shouldn't have them on their person. Is that how Holmdel is handling it? We're working on that now as a district, and as administrative, we're working with Dr. Cascone and the principals and the schools. We're all figuring out how we're going to address that next year and roll that out.
I'm going to be graduated when this happens, but I think one important thing for like students who are going to schools with bell-to-bell bans that have to understand is that the administration that's taking your phones aren't necessarily your enemy. Like, they're not trying to like strip you of like your freedoms or whatever. Obviously, phones are necessary for a lot of things. Like if you left your shoes at home for gym and you need your parents to drop them off. I think there's a lot of understanding that administration will have if you bring that to their attention. I think one of the worst things that can happen is everyone just seeing this and like antagonizing it, because it kind of just sets it up for failure. If I don't know.
And then also just a reminder of even mindset shift that there are phones in the main office that you could always go and use too. But I just wanted to then, because you brought up a good point, and then we as parents also experience that same sort of pressure that everybody else has it, and why can't I? In terms of cell phone, or especially social media, do you feel like that's kind of how it's been? I have to do it because everybody else is doing it, and it's harder to take the stance that it's okay to not have it.
I think it's very difficult nowadays, especially with like like things have transitioned between like the main message like app being like messages to like Snapchat, and like I don't really know how relevant this is for students as a whole, but a lot of like group hangouts are arranged on Snapchat. And sometimes like if you don't have Snapchat, like for example junior year I went unplugged for 3 months because I was studying for the SAT. My dad made me.
Good job.
And like there are a lot of times when I didn't get invited to like parties because it was just an oversight because I didn't have Snapchat and no one like remembered to tell me. And that kind of sucked, but I think it's really important to kind of like go through that. Like there's never going to be a way for it to be fully all positive. I think there are definitely drawbacks to it, but especially like on an individual basis for students, you kind of have to take some self-awareness and judge for yourself whether or not you're ready for that. Yeah.
I think parents are going to struggle because I think we become so used to just texting our kids. You know, we're so used to texting them, and I've found that we have some parents that text their children throughout the day. You know, so I think it's going to be a struggle for parents too.
Right. Well, we kind of like took the discussion into our own hands, but those of you that are here and those of you that are joining us online too, does anybody have any questions? Questions online? Okay. I can go on and on, but thank you again to our panelists for taking the time to be here, for sharing your perspectives. We appreciate it so much. Thank you to our attendees and those watching at home. Great conversation
Yeah,
that
thank
we
you.
want to keep continuing to have. Like we said, it's a struggle. We're learning it ourselves. We're trying to teach it to our own children. We're students, and we're patients, clients, all that.
This was recorded, so it will be shared, so if
Wonderful.
anyone wants to share this, you know. Oh, that would be great. Yeah. So we'll send it out.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
all
you.
so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.